Welcome to this episode of Equalizer podcast. My name is William Acosta. Today's guest is Mr. Michael Dowd, a former New York City police officer whose story became one of the most notorious police corruption cases in NYPD history. He served in Brooklyn 75th Precinct during the 1980s, early 90s, a period later documented in a film, The 7-5, and in multiple interviews and investigations during those years. Michael Dowd crossed every line he has sworn to uphold, working with drug traffickers, protecting and robbing dealers, and turning his badge into a tool for a criminal enterprise until his arrest in 1992 by Suffolk County Police Department, not by the NYPD Internal Affairs, led to a major scandal and a long prison sentence. Today, we are going to talk about his history, his story in detail, not to glorify what happened, but to understand how a young officer becomes corrupt, how an entire department failed to stop him, and what his case reveals about police culture, oversight, and the system that were supposed to protect the public from exactly this kind of betrayal. Mr. Dowd, thank you for being here and for being willing to talk about it on the air with the Equalizer podcast. Hi, Michael. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Bill?
Good. Welcome to this episode of Equalizer. Thank you for being with us today on such a short notice.
We made it happen. We pulled some magic tricks.
That's it. When you first decided to become a police officer, what did the badge mean to you at that time?
I've never really been asked the question that way because when I first became a police officer, I just was really looking for a job. That's the truth, and I wanted to get married and have a relationship. And I knew that the civil service life was not very financially rewarding, but I knew it was a steady paycheck. So I looked at the job as an opportunity to further my life, to mature and grow as an adult male. So, So the question about the badge, the shield, we call it the shield, right? Really, people don't know that we called it the shield. Other people called it the badge, right? But my shield, getting my shield meant to me that I was now a member of a really distinguished organization and very proud. So there was a transition. So initially getting the job, and then when you get your shield, on Gun and Shield Day, I don't know if they had that for you, but you don't get the badge in the academy, you know that, or a shield in the academy. You get it presented the day before graduation.
Right. How did your family, neighborhood, and upbringing shape the way you saw the NYPD and authority when you were young?
So my father was a firefighter. My uncles were police officers and agents for the alcohol, tobacco, firearms. So one of the things that's very odd is this. People that grow up in that life, they don't look at it the same way as people that look at that life. I was in that life. My father was a fireman. Three of my uncles were New York City police officers. So for me, it was like a regular day being around police officers and firefighters and civil servants. So for me, it was a matter of fact approach to life. It was not quite the same as somebody who may have come up in abject poverty like I did, but not in the life of civil service. Maybe they ran a bodega, maybe they ran a shoe store, and they struggled daily. But not me. I had the life of being involved in the civil service life, so I knew what it would be like.
You had a brother that also became a police officer. Did he become a police officer after you or before you?
I had two brothers that became police officers, and both of them after me.
After you, so they were younger.
Yes.
And where did they work at that time? In Manhattan, Queens? Where were they?
So one brother was in the housing PSA. I don't remember because he bounced from one to a couple different PSA 4, PSA 6. He ended up in the Bronx, and he eventually ended up right after 9/11 becoming a sergeant because they lost a bunch of cops. They needed sergeants from the towers falling, and they wouldn't promote him because of me. And then eventually they just promoted him because they needed a crush on bosses. And in fact, he was a DEA agent. He was assigned to the DEA task force on the opposite cubicle. People don't know this. The opposite cubicle, if you know the feds, they have cubicles.
Different groups.
Yeah, right. One prosecutor was in this cubicle, and on the back side of that cubicle, he was prosecuting federal cases against people in Harlem. And the prosecutor on my side, David Fine, who ends up becoming the head of Connecticut at some point, everybody became a head after me, right? So after Fine, he was looking at my brother while he was prosecuting me.
Wow.
Yeah.
What parts of the police academy training prepare you for the street, and what parts felt disconnected from reality?
One of the things that I think I learned most was, and this is coming from a very conservative New York City police officer mindset. One of the things I learned the most was about social sciences. Remember the social sciences classes?
Yes.
I learned that people are different, right? But more so, that certain things are more acceptable in other neighborhoods. And I mean, they use the example of dominoes in the street. We don't harass people. That's their culture. This is what they do. Or if you go to an Italian household, there's always some wine out. They may offer you a glass of wine. These are the things we learned in the academy. Don't be shy if you have a glass of wine with them, or if you're if someone passes away and you're in their home, if they offer you food, eat. So I learned, because I'm a people person, I learned that impressed me the most, and the least preparedness was job calls. I was least prepared for a job call. I was least prepared on how to handle the radio. It was like abysmal.
On your first days in the precinct, what shocked you the most about how the job was really done versus how it was presented to you?
Well, I guess we go back. If I went back to the fact that the radio runs, the calls, there was the speed of the street. Like, in the police department, there's procedures. And there's no way you can do the procedures while you're answering the radio calls and runs and jobs in the street. And then, you're supposed to take a memo for this and a memo for that. Meanwhile, you're either ducking a bullet. I'm not saying in every case, don't get me wrong. Or you're running after to help somebody, or somebody's scuffling with you. And then you got to remember to write something down. I mean, to me, it's such a total disconnect because you don't have the time to write something down because you're on to the next job. Does that make sense?
Yes. Did you see any misconduct in your first year that made you think this is how things work here?
Yes. I saw several examples. It started in the police academy, so I'd have to be honest. The guy told me he broke his finger at home doing something. He asked me, "Could you do me a favor, slam the desk, and I'll go ow, and we'll make a report out that you broke my finger." I mean, this happened in the police academy. So am I going to tell the guy sitting next to me, "No, I'm going to report you"?
Right.
I mean, that's the first month.
How much pressure do young officers feel to fit in and not to be the one Boy Scout on the team?
I mean, how much pressure? What did I say? Pressure can bust a pipe?
Right.
Pressure can bust a pipe. Well, just picture you're a young man, you're altruistic, you think you're doing the right thing, you're 21, 22, 20 years old, you enter the police academy, wow, I'm going to be a police officer, and something's going sideways, and you're sitting there going, do I tell her? Do I report this? Or do I just go along? And I would say that there's the atmosphere of go along.
If you met a version of yourself at 22, what warning would you give him about the path ahead?
Oh boy, see, It's very tough to talk to a 22-year-old person. It's hard to talk to me at 65. So at 22, we think we know everything. We think all the decisions we make are loaded with wisdom when there's absolutely nothing. I would say, when I was a young child, I'm sure you were too, or about the same age, there was a show on TV, a cartoon. There was a turtle and a rabbit. And for some strange reason, the turtle always beat the rabbit, right? But I'm 65, or maybe when I was in my 40s, I realized this, right? But I was in my 40s, I was in federal prison. So, I mean, I would tell you, watch the turtle and the rabbit and apply it to your life.
Do you remember the first time you took money, a favor or a gift that crossed the line from cop to corrupt cop?
Well, so part of, like, first of all, you got to realize, corruption has different levels, but it's all corrupt, right? So, for example, like when I was in Corona, Queens as a rookie, I saw cops go into back then there were game rooms. Remember game rooms where they played asteroids and ping?
Right. Joker poker machines, pinball,
all kinds of stuff, Joker poker. Well, the game rooms. Well, I remember running into a game room and backing up a bunch of old timers. When I say old timers, they had like 20 years in Queens back then, in Corona, Elmhurst, Jackson Heights. So they were seasoned guys, and they grew up in the cocaine trade.
They at the height of the cocaine cowboys and the Cali cartel, the Medellin cartel.
Correct.
Corona,
Right.
Queens.
These cops were actually, if you think about it, people don't know this, but I know, but only from history, that was the hub right there. That was the hub of all the cocaine in the northeastern United States. Because, as you would probably be able to tell me more, they flew the stuff in by Avianca and all these different airlines. There were two airports, Kennedy and LaGuardia, and right in the middle was Corona, Jackson Heights. Am I correct?
Right. And the settlement of many of us that came from Colombia was exactly Jackson Heights, Long Island City, right. Sunnyside, Woodside, Corona, Elmhurst, East Elmhurst, yes. And so on.
So what happened was, these cops that I don't know, I'm a kid, right? I'm a rookie. I'm 20 years old, 21 years old. They know what they look. They know what, listen, cops know the street. It takes you about a year to know just about everything in the street that's happening and what's going on. It may take you a little longer to get really good at it, but within a year, you have an idea what's happening. These guys had 20 years in this neighborhood. They knew every single store owner. They knew every bodega owner. They knew every business. And I'm telling you what, they knew everyone. And they knew what was out of place and what wasn't. And they knew what was happening in every single location. So when they rolled up with 20 years experience, they knew what was happening. I didn't. I had no clue. But I noticed there was some white powder flying around, and then it was gone. And there was no arrests, and there was no vouchering. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Did that first step feel like a big moral break, or did it feel small and easy to justify the first time you were placed in a situation where you say, okay, I'm taking this money out of this kid's pocket, right, and I'm giving him back his wallet, and then the kid goes and reports you. He goes into the precinct and makes a report that his wallet disappeared with his money.
That son of a bitch. First of all, that son of a bitch. He wasn't the first person that I took money from, I'll be honest. But he was the first person that I took money from. He had marijuana and cocaine on him. I left him with the marijuana and the cocaine. I took $400-something from him, which was only half of his money. And he drove to the precinct to report me for stealing his fucking money. I mean, you can't make this story up. Are you kidding me? And this guy was so slick that he parked the car 4 blocks away from the station house. So the lieutenant called me up and says to me, 10-1. It hit me on the radio, 10-1. I'm like, around the block, I'll 10. No, 10-1. So he set me up to let me know, Lieutenant Frank Thurstino, one of the nicest men you'll ever want to meet. Don't get me wrong. Of course, what he did was he was helping me, right? But as far as the cop goes, he was the greatest guy in the world. Dowd, is someone here reporting you for taking money? I know you didn't take any. Of course not, Lieutenant. He goes, but he's at the gate. We're trying to keep him out of here. Grab him before he gets into the gate and to the 124 room and makes the fucking report. We're holding him off. So I came in from the front door, which I never do at the precinct. I'm looking for the guy's car. I can't find it. So I go, oh, well, what's going on? Let's say Juan. What's going on, Juan? What the hell's going on? He goes, officer, my money's missing. I go, what? How does that happen? Meanwhile, we didn't discuss his marijuana and heroin, cocaine possession. That didn't count, right? So I go, mate, did you check your car? He says, I looked all over. I go, I think you should look in your back seat or something, because I know we checked your back seat for your drugs, but let's go look for your money now. So I go, I'll follow you to the car. So I ended up walking 4 blocks away where he parked his car, turned it away down the stretch so you couldn't see it. I go, I'm looking at this guy, this son of a bitch. He came there to really fuck me over, right? So I said, by you reporting this, it's going to cost me 10 days vacation, maybe suspend me, and all these things for $450 that I didn't take. He goes, well, I can't find it. I go, yeah, okay. And you know what I want to do to him, right? You know what I want to do to him? I want to put my elbow through his head, but I restrain myself, right? And I go to his car, I open the door, and I throw the money on the floor. Then I hit the flashlight on it. I go, you see it? He goes, oh, I didn't know. I said, yeah, okay. Don't ever let me see you again. So you can imagine how that story went.
Was there a moment you realized you weren't just bending rules and you are now part of a criminal operation? When did that part come about? When you met Diaz or before Diaz?
Just before Diaz, I worked with La Compañía. And the relationship grew between the Auto Sound City, Baron Perez. I mean, listen, like I told you earlier, when people know all the business people in the area, they know what goes on in the businesses. I mean, Baron Perez ran Auto Sound City, which was a place where they installed the very expensive, if you're familiar, boom boxes in the car.
The Benzie boxes, the big boom boxes.
Big fucking booms. I can't even tell you, woofers and boofers and speakers. Anyway, it was $15,000 to $20,000 to get a system in your car. Who's got $15,000 in 1985 or 6 or 7 to put into a vehicle? Guys with a lot of cash. Guys in the drug business. So we knew that he had friends in the drug business or clients. And from there, what happened was we brought him some drugs one time from a hit to sell. Not a hit. We found some stash at a murder scene. So we brought the drugs to him to sell. So we opened the door to a conversation. And long story short, he ends up telling me, hey, I got a guy who wants to pay you for information. I go, well, information? Sure. I got no information, but I'll make believe I got information. And sure enough, the guy paid us $8,000 for 4th of July weekend. So I made the assumption, it's 4th of July weekend. The guy wants to know if he can not be concerned about business. I looked at my partner. I said, 4th of July weekend, there's all these details. Even narcotics goes on details. They cover the parades, the flotations, the fireworks displays. No one's doing narcotics work on 4th of July. I mean, when I say no one, I mean, for the most part, it's not the big weekend when they do it, They're not doing any busts that weekend.
But this information was all a lie. You concocted this story.
Come on. I had no clue.
Money.
No, I just wanted the money.
Right. And at that time, were you working with Chucky, or at that time you were working with Urel?
I was working with Urel at that time. That's fast forward. Yeah.
Right. But before that, let's go back to when you were working with Chucky. At one point, before he left the police department, he was very street savvy. He knew the street.
Chucky was good. He knew the street pretty well. I give him credit.
Right.
No one he was very savvy, and but Chucky had a propensity. He liked guns. I liked money. So one of the.
So you let him keep all the guns and we get all the money.
You can say it that way, but the reality was Chucky and I didn't partner up very often, but we were in the same squad. So we didn't really partner up much unless our partners were both out. So we only worked together once or twice in a patrol car, but being in the same squad, he's like a partner. You know that. I mean, you're in a regular shift together. You back each other up every day. You go out afterwards for drinks. You bang whores together. Whatever you do it together because it's the squad, right? There's 35 guys in the squad, whatever it was at the time, and 20 of us close-knit, So you could never affect us.
How was the nepotism and the racism in the police department at that time?
Well, if you go down that rabbit hole, you got to accept my view from a white Irish American police officer.
Right. No, that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah. So, far as we were concerned, I never cared about the color of anybody or their Hispanic, but I would utilize it, right? I mean, everybody uses it. You need an Irish guy to get in there. Okay, we got an Irish guy with us, So that's it. I need a black guy. Bring a black guy. But you would be at my house, whether you're black, Spanish, Asian, or persuasion, I wouldn't care. So that's who I am as a person. And I don't know if you know this, but what happened was this. And if you go over to that, the mayor, what's the black mayor just lost his job?
Adams.
If you go back to his days, he began in the middle 80s, like 85, 86, to cause a rift in the police department. And what happened was, in 1984, we took the sergeant's test. Was it 84? It was either 84 or 85. It was the sergeant's test. And when they finally promulgated the list, they made a black list, a white list, a Spanish list, and a female list. And you know better than anything, who wants to be promoted based on their ethnicity or their gender or their color or their religion? I mean, I want to be promoted on merit. Right, so it caused quite a rift in the men and women in uniform. So I'll give you an example. One of the guys comes to us, and these guys are friends of ours: black guy, Spanish guy, and a woman. 3 of them were getting made from our group, and they came to us and begged for us to accept them to take the promotion. Like, think about the dichotomy that takes place here. Now, if you don't understand what that's like. You're Hispanic, right? You're a Hispanic man, right?
Yes.
You would have come to me and said, Mike, they're offering me a position. I know I didn't get the same grade as you. Let's just make believe this is a story. I didn't get the same grade as you. I got a 68 or 90. You got a 90, I got a 68, but I'm going to be your sergeant. That's not a good position that you're putting that person in, right? Because the relationship between him and I now, that may not personally change, but if he doesn't know me and he goes into another command and starts taking control of another flanks of guys, squad of guys, they're going to go, he's my boss because he's Spanish, black, Asian, or female. And that was very, very eviscerating to the entire department because you were my good friend. I had your back. Now you're my boss because you have a different ethnicity than me. It was very, very, very difficult from a white Irish guy's perspective.
Now let me back a little bit.
Yeah.
Now let's look at the way they punish blacks and Latinos in the police department.
Okay.
Because they didn't have a hook or a protector or a rabbi.
Hey. Okay. All right. That makes good answer. Good question. But I can give you the opposite.
Later on, it became that way.
Yes. I can give you the opposite. How they came to me and said, "Oh, we don't want to arrest him. We just want him off the job." This is what ends up happening.
Right.
So Billy, the question isn't about that. You asked me what it did. I'm telling you what it did. That's all.
All right. No. And that's why I asked that question.
Yeah.
When did the money become more important than the shield? When did you say, screw this, I'm not cashing my checks anymore, I'm putting them in my locker, I don't need these pennies that they're giving me?
Yeah.
I'm making $4,000.
Listen, it's pretty clear when you start making $8,000, splitting $8,000, $4,000 a week each, me and my partner. The check was insignificant at that point. I mean, the check was only $400 a week, which is $800 every 2 weeks, which was not quite. I was clearing $740 in 2 weeks, right? After paying all the deductions, and my shakedown was $4,000 a week. I mean, you're talking about chump change. And I began to get, at some point, not right away, at some point I got involved in cocaine distribution. When the money started to fail, cocaine distribution stepped up.
Mike, if you had to look back on that time, do you believe that the corruption got worse because you got hooked onto the product?
The honest answer is no. My behavior became more erratic. Yes, but the corruption was actually, but you won't believe this, the corruption was actually much less. And that was because I had less access. They moved me to the 9-4 precinct. And I knew I was under a lot of scrutiny. So at that point, my corruption level had dropped down significantly. I didn't completely pull myself out of it, which is why, as you know, for anybody, if you've been around the drug organizations, it's very hard to pull yourself out of that kind of monthly, daily, weekly activity of financing.
Right. Were there any moments where you almost pulled back and chose a different path, but you didn't?
Well, yes. So more than once, I went off to a rehab, and I decided that I wanted to save my marriage. I had a new child, and I wanted to. So I turned myself in, but I was so damaged department-wise. So the honest answer is, greed never leaves you. Greed, or the desire to have things, never leaves. I went off to rehab. I came back to my wife and my child. I had a nice home. I was financially stable. I had rental incomes. I didn't need to do it. But at some point, when I got transferred to the 9, so here's what happened to me. When I got transferred to the 9-4, they didn't want to work with me. No one wanted to be my partner. So I did 2 years in a rehab. When I went to the 9-4 precinct, no one wanted to work with me. So, Bill, William, whatever you want me to call you, I'm a very sociable, gregarious, outgoing individual. And it's very difficult for a guy to walk into a station house with 30, 40 guys around, and no one wants to talk to you. No one wants to go out with you after work for a cocktail. No one wants to know you. No one wants to talk to you.
Well, I lived that coming from internal affairs back to patrol.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a welcoming community.
No one's standing there, hey, welcome back to the family, brother. No.
No.
So the interesting thing was, and you may know about this from studying, because my case is a study, right? My partner became Tom Massia.
Yes.
And he's like one of the only police officers at that time ever to be charged with murder while on duty. And that's all to do with Al Sharpton screaming and yelling, the whole nonsense. He gets charged with murder. The kid goes to trial, and he beats trial. Right? Then they march, they hate it, whatever. Long story short, they end up with him light duty for 2 years. They put him back in the 9-4. Who's going to work with him? You got a guy for murder, and the guy who's known to be one of the most corrupt police officers currently on the job. It's known. My captain interviewed me on the way in. He said, if I catch you myself, I'll put the handcuffs on you. He says to me, that's on my interview, into the precinct. Now I get a guy comes in with a murder. Who's going to work with him? Nobody. Because they don't want the attention, right? Because he wasn't a bad guy. They didn't want the attention. If they work with him, they're going to look under their skirt. So they put me and him together. We ended up together. And what can I tell you? You got a murderer and a fucking corrupt guy together in the car. We're looking at each other. You know, our career path wasn't on a trajectory through the roof. Let me just say that much. So.
Right. How would you describe the culture of the 75th Precinct during those years? Honestly, from the inside.
Okay, so as an individual person, as an individual police officer, I felt like I was God. I don't know if that explains it. Like, we could do no wrong. That makes sense to you as a...
Right, but was that because you felt protected by the rank and file or by the supervisors, or who was giving you that protection, that shield?
So, I would say it was a combination. When you work in a very dangerous location, and you could probably go to like a Mogadishu or Vietnam, when you work in a danger zone or Lebanon, if you go into a war zone, the people around you are there to help protect you more than they are to scrutinize you. And I didn't really feel that the bosses, the higher ups, were there to hurt us. I mean, we had our PBA delegates. They had good relationships with our staff, our upper ranking staff guys. And they didn't want to see a cop lose his job or his career over a relatively insignificant infraction. So we felt as though we were protected in many ways.
Let me ask you, when was the first time that you knew that Sergeant Tromboli was following you?
So I wouldn't say Sergeant Tromboli, but somebody.
You didn't know it was Sergeant Tromboli?
I didn't know it was Tromboli, but I knew somebody was following me when I was in Coney Island for certain. That was at 19. If I said 86, I could be wrong, but I think it was 86. I don't remember. 85 and 86 are very blurry to me. So, but he was watching me from across the street with a newspaper, in a trench coat, in the rain, like going like this. The guy was a little silly, all right? But it was funny because he would follow me in Long Island too. And then one day, so I knew he was following me back in 85, but I didn't know who it was. Maybe 86.
We're working on a book right now that's going to be released pretty soon.
Yes.
It's called Willfully Blind, a dirty cop in the department that looked away, by Michael Dowd and William Acosta.
Right.
This is the cover for the book.
Right. Beautiful.
Is going to be out soon. And Mike, your story and the way the book is done is not to glorify what happened,
Right.
but to try to get other officers and young officers going into the police academy to understand that there's no shortcuts,
Right.
that corruption is not the answer,
Right.
that is never the answer.
No.
It's only glory for a few minutes, and then it's a life of pain and losing a lot of things in your life, family, health, the company of your parents.
I want to share this real quick, so it really encapsulates it. When I came home from prison, number one, when I was out on bail, I didn't want to be seen because I was fearful. I didn't know what was going to happen. When I came out of prison and I walked in Manhattan and I walked past a police officer, I was no longer family. I was no longer a brother to him. It was the worst feeling. I would say I'm gonna go on a limb and say this. I'm like the worst feeling I ever had in my life. I couldn't walk up to a police officer and say hello and feel comfortable. Because if a conversation took place, I'd have to say that I just came home from prison. I was a police officer, back in the 80s and 90s, and now it's 2004. I just came out of prison after serving 12 and a half years in federal penitentiary. And how you doing? I hope you lose. You feel it right through your heart. And let me tell you something. I can't say it any. That's the worst feeling. I can't. My arms are fucking getting more goosebumps. That's the worst feeling that any man should go through.
But you also had a very bad feeling of losing your friendship with Urel. The betrayal hit you very hard.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Because you at one time you loved him like a brother. I mean, like,
yeah,
really.
Yeah, I put him ahead of my family.
Right, ahead of your family, ahead of everything.
Yeah.
And he made a lot of money with you
when
you were doing whatever you were doing in the street.
Yeah. And he had business, by the way, his own drug business. I didn't know.
And did you ever spoke to him after you got released or never?
Yes.
And how was that conversation?
So, when they did the documentary, the 7-5, I had a long thought process I went through because they asked if they would think it. I didn't know that they had already started the documentary without me. I didn't know that. But when they approached me, they said, "Would you mind if Ken Urel was in the documentary?" I said, "Absolutely, do not want him in this," because it basically became my documentary. Right when they did the 7-5, it really wasn't about him anymore. It was about me and what we all went through. Well, partly him, but I was so angry I didn't want him to be a part of it. But they begged me to make it happen. So I said, a couple of people called me and said, Mike, it'd be good for everybody if you let it happen. So I said, here's what I said. I'll let it happen. You have him meet me in front of the 7-5 precinct. With the cameras rolling. And he walked up from around the corner, and I was standing in front of the 7-5. He walked right into me. And I go, hey, Ken. He's like, he fucking, and I just hugged him.
Yeah, because, whatever, that at one time, they did the nightlife program. It was called A Good Cop. And it was my life, but it was comparing to you. At the time, I didn't know you.
Right.
And it was David Maris and Ted Koppel.
Right.
And he showed the difference because there is a very important thing that people need to know. What has happened to many undercovers and many internal affairs investigators, and even people in the field associate program, like Officer Otto, that testified during the Mullen Commission.
Right.
They went after him with a vengeance. They went after Tromboli. They went after me. They go after the people that make them look bad. If you say, your brother is corrupt, you become the target of that investigation.
Yeah.
They're no longer looking at the target you're reporting.
Right.
They weaponize the system against the actual investigator.
Heard weaponization thrown around quite a bit in the last 10 years.
Right. So that that is one of the reasons that I tell you, your book, the book that I wrote, which is the Blue Mafia Criminals with a Badge,
right,
are important even for students, law students.
Yes.
Police officers in the academy.
Yes.
Even older police officers and retirees. Because somewhere in those books, they're going to be able to say, yeah, that happened to me. Or I knew somebody that happened to.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you a quick little story, and I don't really want to tell too many. You may have heard this, you didn't. I was in NSU, and I get my first tour in a car. You get in with the two detectives. Back then, they had two detectives and the two rookies in the back. They called them field training officers. And they both had 20-something years on the job, and they give them the gold badge just to be training officers. They weren't really detectives, but they got
detective specialists, they call it.
So, P.S., I'm in the car with them. We're in the car, and they gave us two quick tests. They stopped in the bodega. They got their shit for free. No, we didn't say nothing. Then they said, go get some pizza and some cold ones. So pizza was free, and of course the cold ones means beer, right? So we got some beer and some pizza. Then at the end of the by the end of the shift, they were telling us how this guy. By the end of the shift, they were telling us how this corruption scandal in the 110 precinct in 1979-80, that the guy that was the snitch, the rat, whatever you want to call him, internal affair, whatever he was to the case. He ended up falling over a railing and falling down to his death. This is what they told us. The guy who gave information that caused the case to be unraveled, for the cops to get arrested. It was called the 110 Sergeants Club. Right? They were all getting paid off. And the guy in the 110 ended up falling to his death, an accidental death, in a snowstorm around the precinct Christmas party. They were up on the 5th floor or 4th floor, and he went over the railing and died. That's what I don't know if it happened, but that's what they told me. So, BS. I'm like, okay. So this guy told on you guys, and he's dead. Okay, so that's off the list.
That makes you think twice.
Yeah, that was like my first car tour. My first time in a car with veteran cops.
I tell you, let me ask two more questions, so I know that you have a lot of other things to do.
Yeah.
When Internal Affairs came to speak at the academy, how were they presented to you, the recruits? as partners in integrity or as people to fear?
Yeah, it was more about watch out for them. Yeah, there was no, it was, and then when they left, the instructor would say, okay, now if you do things their way, good luck. But that's why we want you to learn how to cover your ass so you never have to deal with them.
So more or less, whatever they came to teach you about integrity and about how you're supposed to behave went out the window as soon as they left the room.
Worry about what they said. Worry about covering your ass so you never have to deal with them.
Were you given any practical advice on how to work with internal affairs if you saw corruption, or only on how to get caught, and how to not get caught by them?
Well, internal affairs, you know, they said there's a hotline. If you see something, you want to report it, you'll remain anonymous. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you remain anonymous. They were giving me death threats after I reported Barrett Scott to Trimboli. Okay? I got death threats at my house.
Hey, were there any informal conversations among cadets after the internal affairs section? And what was the tone? Fear, jokes, or total dismissal from, you know, what they heard?
Yeah, there was no fear in it. It was just stay away from those motherfuckers. Just stay away from them.
What does the word rat mean to police officers?
Well, I think if you're in the mob, a rat is an informant that should be killed. If you're in the police force, a rat is an informant that should be killed. It's the same thing.
Did you ever witness somebody that they thought was a rat and they are trying to call on the radio and they are jamming the frequency so they cannot get in contact with Central?
Yes.
Was that a quacking situation? Quack, 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 quack?
Yes.
Or...
Yes. How'd you know?
Because they did that to me many of times and put a lot of people in danger. That's why.
Yes.
So it was like a common practice within the police department.
Common practice. Yes.
For an honest cop
Yeah.
in the environment, what did it mean to be seen talking to internal affairs?
It's career ending. You're done.
Did the fear of internal affairs ever actually stop anyone from crossing the line, or did it just make people smarter about hiding it?
I mean, I guess in general the answer is that, but the answer is exactly what you just said. Be smarter about hiding it. But I would think, you know, listen, I get phone calls from people, okay? And they tell me this: because I saw your documentary, I resigned or I straightened my career out.
Mike, what would you like the police commissioner, Commissioner Tisch, and the people in higher up places in the police department? Do you think it would be beneficial for people like you to be invited into the police academy to speak to new officers that are going to hit the street?
I'll put it to you like this, okay? How's it working now for you? How's it working? How's your anti-corruption levers? How are they working for you now? Because I'll give you an example. I speak, not a lot, but I speak. I told a guy out in California, he wanted to know about speaking. I said, how about you tell your supervisors or your commissioners or your council people that have to pay for me to come out there. Tell them, is one scandal enough? Is one scandal enough to damage the entire reputation of your department? Because if it is, then if you pay me to come out there, 5, 10 grand, whatever it costs you, you may save the entire police force the whole 5, 10 years minimum and one damage that one cop can do to your police force. So, I mean, the investment to get somebody like myself that has been through the rigors, that knows both sides, that knows the infamy and the shame, the public disgrace that it is to be put in my position. If I can't keep you from doing it, you're a corrupt motherfucker. But if you're like every normal human being that has a little bit of greed, a little bit of larceny in them, but call it scared straight, whatever it is, because everybody has it in them. You gotta admit it. Everybody has that little bit in them. That if I can get away with this, maybe I'll do it. Not everybody will do it because they have a fear or of being caught or the shame. You don't have both. You have a fear of being caught or the shame. Because if you thought about it, there's no shame in it. It's the fear of being caught that kept you there. If you didn't like the shame, then you wouldn't do it because you wouldn't think about it. Because there's two different ways of approaching it. But my feeling is, if you get a guy like myself or my experience in your police academy, Mrs. Tish, if I can't make an impact on this person, then you really had a bad person, not a guy who went the bad way. Does that make sense? Some guys go the wrong way, and some guys are just bad.
There was one thing that I want to close on, and is, Mike, could have they stopped you sooner so you wouldn't have to pay this heavy price?
You know, I often think that over in my head. And, I mean, the pat answer is yes. But they would have probably either had to terminate me or keep me on a long-term modified assignment.
Right, but terminate you or keeping you at a modified assignment is much better than losing 14 years of your life.
Yes, no, they could have done me a favor and terminated me. Yes. And by the way, they could have done it at any moment.
Because there was a lot of tail signs. There were a lot of people that knew what was going on.
Nice.
It wasn't like you were keeping a secret. Everybody in the precinct knew who Michael Dowd was.
Yeah, I put a brand new Corvette in the lieutenant's spot.
And how much was that Corvette at that time?
$34,000.
And you know, that's what a house costs.
Yeah, that my house was $48,000.
You understand what I'm saying? That was a good down payment for a house.
Yes.
Didn't the lieutenant or the integrity lieutenant or somebody say, what's going on here?
They didn't come to me and say it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Listen, Mike, I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
I hope that we could do this more often. I think that between us, we could help a lot of young police officers.
I think we could be a force to reckon with in the speaking circuit. Absolutely.
And I really appreciate it. May God continue to bless you and your family.
Thank
I
you.
hope that your mother feels better. I'm going to have her in my prayers.
Thank you.
And I'll talk to you later on. Thanks a lot, man. God bless. This concludes this episode of Equalizer Podcast. A special thanks to my guest, former NYPD Officer Michael Dowd, for openly sharing his story and his perspective on how the system failed to stop him and what needs to change so it doesn't happen again. Thank you to our listeners for joining us and for your continued support. And a very special thanks to my production team for their work. Without them, this program will not be possible. If you found this conversation valuable, please give it a like and share it with your family and friends. And follow the links on your screen for more interviews, stories, and behind-the-scene insights from the world of law enforcement, corruption, accountability. I'm your host, William Acosta. Thank you for tuning in. And as always, stay safe. God bless you.